presenter tonight is a teacher at Magdalen High School. She's a Mount Carmel Parish parishioner, and she also teaches at the Detention Centre. So we give a big warm welcome to Benney tonight.
Can you hear my voice?
Yeah.
I'd rather not use the microphone. Yeah, thank you. Good evening, my name is Jacqueline Benney. I feel very privileged to be here actually. So thank you for your time. I'm here to speak about asylum seekers, and I've been involved in this journey for about a year and a half now and exploring it in my own way. I'd like to start with sharing something with you which I think is a wonderful beginning to something like this. On the 1st of June 2011, I went on my first visit to a family's home, which was a community detention location in Auburn. Reverend John Chidzey, who's a United Church humanitarian and Reverend of the Hughes Parish. He's a wonderful man, and he's very active in the Sri Lankan Tamil community, helping asylum seekers blend into the community, and also he's also a support within the detention centres. He took me on my first visit, and so I'd like to share this with you. This is the experience of a father, a mother, and a baby, but it's through the father's words. Risen is the baby. So Risen's dad spoke to me about his experiences. He asked me what my occupation was. I asked him about his. He said, I'm a car detailer and delivery person in Epping, a long way to drive. I took the day off to go with my wife to the doctors. It's hard, renting, bills, car, everything is so expensive. There are 2 other people living with us. They get $100 each. This place costs $450 a week. I asked him, are you happy here? He said, yes, very happy. It's safe. We can go to bed at night and sleep peacefully. In Sri Lanka, our beds would shake as little bombs going off all the time. We were never safe. He said, I worked in curriculum with children. I also worked for the militia and learned a lot about electricals. I would like to be an electrician. I would like to study, but I have to support my family. I asked him, how did you get here? He answered, by boat. It was hard. We were told that we would be on the boat for 4 days, but we were there for 26. And we were told nothing while we were there. It was horrible. We arrived, the boat was in poor condition. We were scared when we arrived because the military came onto the boat and we were scared. Because in Sri Lanka, the militia would hurt and rape. We had fear because that is what we expected. They asked us where we were from and checked us, health checks, etc. Then they took us to Christmas Island. We had food, clean clothes. They gave us thongs because we lost our shoes on the boat. We had activities and they took care of us. I asked, do you have any family here? He answered, no. I have 3 sisters and my mum in Sri Lanka. I asked, will they come here too? He answered, I know, they would never be able to go through it. It was risky, very difficult. We just left with only the clothes we had. It was hard. Risen was born in Villawood Detention Centre in April 2010. He's now 1 year old and 1 month. Well, that was then. He's older now. It's like what we're saying. His parents were very sad about this. So they were actually sad that he was born in the detention centre. Reverend John compared it to the birth of Jesus being born in a stable. They called them the boy risen. So Reverend John made them feel a bit more comfortable about the situation. So that's just one of the experiences that moved me. That was my first visit to community detention home. And I think the thing that I said to my husband the other night, that I'm going to find this very difficult because I have to put words to experiences, and it's been really easy, well, not easy, it's been rewarding going through this journey and just exploring my way through it. But I haven't had to to actually put it together into a cohesive way until now. I made art about it, but art is very intuitive for me, so that's just sort of happening along the way. And so, so those sorts of experiences, I sort of feel very privileged about entering into the homes of these people who are just so generous and welcoming, and they don't even know who you are, they just trust Reverend Jacqueline. So that trusting relationship they have with him, that caused them to welcome me, to sit me down and offer me a cup of tea. And after an hour or so of conversation, and after I'm explaining through either Reverend Jacqueline's interpretation or through this father in particular, I had very good English, through my own conversation with them, then to get to the point to actually say, hey, I'm an artist and I'm looking at trying to understand your situation and hoping to raise some sort of level of consciousness through an art exhibition. That was actually really hard to say, because I'm putting myself in the position of, I think I could say something about your experience, and that felt really bad and didn't feel very good sitting in their home and asking, can I take photographs? Because by asking that, I'm feeling like I'm objectifying something that is very personal, and I'm putting, I'm going to sort of somehow make some physical representation of their experience, which doesn't really sound it's not really going to happen that way, but the intention is there, and so the journey was a bit up and down because I went through a lot of these feelings. So Reverend Jacqueline took me to a fair few of these visits, but these people were very generous, and there was one family that they were very protective of their child. They didn't want their child photographed, which I totally understood, because they all had different situations, and they've all got a different personal scenario that went under investigation before they could even leave the detention centre, or which of the detention centre they came from. So they're protecting the identity of their children and that sort of thing. But I just want to share with you a few images. Just pressing that one, which reflect what I've just spoken about. So this is risen, and while I'm on the topic of this, you're probably wondering, when I spoke about protecting the identity of the people as I'm photographing, obviously I had to contact people like Margaret Piper. She's an academic in the area, and that connected me with a lawyer friend who, at intervals, I would send my images through and get them to be checked to make sure that I'm not crossing any lines, because the last thing I want to do is to have an exhibition and to show these images and to somehow do something wrong for these people. So this is So me, I'm a middle class Australian, and that feels highly, I feel amplified in that role every time I'm in any sort of situation in terms of community or the detention centres in Greenwood. So I'm a middle class Australian, I'm a privileged one, and I have a brand new house built 3 years ago-ish, and a husband who is very supportive, and I married 3 years ago, remarried, and I have been together. We have 6 children. There's our photograph there. And I'm an art teacher of 18 years, so there are my kids this year. We did some murals at Mitre Day, so that was a lot of fun, and we went to Brett Whiteley Gallery in Surrey Hills, and that's just a picture of our dining room this week to show you how fortunate we are, and this is me. The reason why I'm doing this project is last year I finished my Masters in Fine Arts Drawing, and because I'm passionate about making, and I got to the point where I finished and it was like, okay, what will I do now? I can't stop making art because I've done it all my life, and if I don't continue to study, I'm not going to keep my foot in the door because I've got family and I'm a teacher and I need to keep it alive, and I wanted to make it purposeful, so I chose something that was important to me, which was asylum seekers. And so after talking to a number of people over a number of months and getting a lot of support around me and nods of the head, yes, this sounds like it could work, rather than feeling like I'm treading into territory that may not be a good idea, that's where I started this process. So I just want to bring this quote forward to you because this quote situates me For many people in Australia, war and human-to-human conflict is a far-off reality. Facing persecution and organised violence by government forces or a rogue militia is also a distant truth, but for people from refugee backgrounds, these events are part of their life story. Yet how do we translate these experiences and their effects? So that's the problem that I have, and how can we feel like we can understand it? So this was the starting point that myself and fellow artist Keith Chidzey. Keith Chidzey is a friend of mine we did our masters together, and he's a sculptor and he makes public works. And we both sort of worked on this concept of affinity, because we can't even pretend or try to understand the experience of people in this situation, but we can understand what we know, which is that we're human and that we all won't. And this is what I really got from the people in community detention. These beautiful families, the mums and the dads, they simply wanted safety and food and shelter and clothing and just a safe place to love their kids. And that's sort of, we're all similar. Affinity, sameness, acknowledging difference, that somehow try and acknowledge that, and with visual arts, hopefully to achieve a dialogue where there is room for conversation and just to sort of reflect on the situation and to somehow bridge gaps, so that maybe we can somehow raise awareness and take our young people into the exhibitions and get them talking and somehow get them to embrace an open mind. So with the conversations with a number of people in the area, so Margaret Piper, who's this wonderfully generous lady, she's an academic and she'll give you as much time as you need on the phone, and Paul Power, who's CEO of the Refugee Council Australia. He's also a very generous man and very passionate about what he does, and it's assuring to know that these people in the area care so much. And then we've got a variety of other people. I hope we've got Benney, Reverend John Sophie, and a few other people that you wouldn't know even if I mentioned. This was what it came up. It came down to this: if we were to go anywhere with this idea of exploring asylum seekers, we needed to make sure that we collaborated with our subject and that we gained permission and we gave something back. That was the big thing, giving something back that didn't come to my mind at first. But as soon as I sat down in the very first lounge room, I thought, gee, I can't just sit here and take photographs, this isn't right. So there was that feeling straight away, and then so the giving something back had to be a big part of it. So this is that first place I moved to. This is where they were living, just walking down that little pathway there and into the stairs, and walked up the stairs and knocked on the door and had these beautiful people welcome me into their home. So this one's in Auburn. And these are the people. So the thing that really that impacted my mind for a number of weeks after this visit was the father, actually. He just had such a weight on his shoulders and he didn't smile much. He was beautiful. He did smile when he welcomed me, but he watched from a distance in silence as his little girl and mum interacted with Reverend Jacqueline and myself. And I went back to these people something like 6 months ago, and the little girl was beautiful. She was going to school and she was performing dances and showing me how good she was with the maths and bringing out the colouring room. She was like just so proud and so smart and able to speak so well. English was excellent. And the mum was so proud. I noticed something that's a lot of Sri Lankan interaction because of Reverend Jacqueline, but the Sri Lankan community value of education, and they have such, we all do have such pride in our children, but they really value what the children have learned at school. And this mum was pregnant, so I met the baby the next time I went. She was a beautiful woman, a lot of smiling, and she loved to paint, the little girl. I'm not using their names for obvious reasons, but also on top of that I can barely say their names. Their names are very difficult to say. So she loved to paint. We took her some watercolour paints and a sketchbook. And this was the second time I visited, the same family. So you can see the girls a little bit older and the babies born. Okay, so after this community detention visiting that was going on, these people obviously were in detention centres and moved down into the community. That was where, that strong sense of we just have to start giving back somehow. And then getting on to Reverend Jacqueline and asking how do we get into the detention centre, and started that process going. And because Villawood Detention Centre allow visitors, and there's criteria involved, you have to fill out the paperwork days before and that sort of thing, but it's more difficult to get in to visit the side where there are currently 400 adults, 40 of them are women, but they're not families, they're individuals, and the other 360 are men. It's more difficult to get into that side, but I'll fill you in on that later. We were going into the housing side where the families were, and because being skilled in art, we were able to say we could justify our existence there and be useful to them by using the skills of art and crafts with the children. So the criteria is that you have to be over the age of 18 to be a volunteer, and you have to be able to provide some sort of learning service so that when they leave the detention centres, they're useful to the community. So Serco puts in some very rigid criteria for being part of a volunteer group in the detention centre, and they don't actually want to hear anything about social justice in the proposal. So you're better off if you're ever wanting to go that path and get involved, to make sure you can justify your skill, be over the age of 18 and don't mention the colours, no more than fuzzies. And that's, they won't approve that. That was made very clear to us. So this was the process. It took a lot of visits to get it going, and Daniel Brixton is the activities coordinator there, and he is a beautifully energetic young man with a PhD degree in physical education and whatever that is. I won't get into that now. I can tell you, but I won't get into it. So he is the activities coordinator, and he really loves his job, and he really cares about the children, and he's willing to take volunteers at any point. So he approved our proposal, which we were very excited about, and we've been going there. This is what it looks like on the side with the individuals. We can't take photographs in the detention centre. This is actually off the internet. We can take photographs from the roadside, but not from inside. And interestingly enough, while I'm on the topic, if you look it up on the internet, it will send you to Birmingham Road, which is actually not even an entry point into the wood. It takes you to an industrial area, which is, then you can't even see the wood. It's sort of over a bit of like stretch of land behind the industrial area, behind the trees, somewhere over there. You see a little sign, it's discreet and out of sight. The only reason why I knew where the entry point was, the locals would know because it's a side street with people living on the other side. The only reason why I knew is because I got on the phone and spoke to Reverend again, and he gave me the way to get in. So it's interesting how it's online advertised as the entry point is here, but you don't see it. So it's not really that sort of, intimidating or it's not disconcerting because it's sort of hidden, but when you get around to the other side, you can then walk into the gates and see this very clearly on that side, and then this side is where the families and the little homes are, which it's quite nice on the inside. There are little homes and a bit of grass and some veggie gardens and an entertainment area which the general public are allowed to go into. You can't go on the other side of the park, and the security is it's all highly secure, but the fencing is not as high as this side, and then there's guards everywhere. So these are the things that I felt like jelly when I first saw this. I walked around for the first time before I even filled out any paperwork just to transition myself, and then the paperwork began. So my first visit into Villawood was with Keith, and we visited some Sri Lankan mums. We needed names. To get in, you need names. So on the paperwork, Reverend Jacqueline, again, amazing man, could give us names, and we had to fill out all of these names just to sort of pretend that we knew them to get in to then meet them, and just to start the ball rolling. So this is how I felt about them. These people were so real in their connection with us. They spoke with substance and sincerity about their plight, their escape from destruction and pain, the cruel sea, these are their words, the cruel sea, that's the words of one of the mums. How God saved them, that they also said that. Their disillusionment with the Australian government, their current despair in their loneliness and isolation, and their yearning for freedom and life. That first visit, those Sri Lankan mums that we met, they were very negative, and it wasn't a very good energy. And after we spoke with them, Daniel filled us in on the situation and said, look, a week ago there was a suicide, and they're really uptight and not very happy at this point in time. So we visited at that time, and we got a lot of negativity from them, and it was really difficult actually, but you know, our difficulty is nothing compared to theirs. And these are some quotes and the things that some of the women said. So one of the ladies said, God saved us, but the Australian government is killing us daily. One of the things I'm really getting out of the little detention centre, because we're regular volunteers now, is that, and we know this because we get it from the media, is that they are waiting around, and they are waiting around without any knowledge of when they're going to hear anything. And the criteria is this big. It's all of these boxes that have to be ticked before they can leave, and that's often in regard to collaboration between the Australian government and theirs. So that takes time. That's time consuming, and every time a box gets ticked, they move on to the next one, and sometimes you can be at that box for a year before they even get to that. You know, and it's a long process. And often Villawood is where they go once they've been somewhere else, to one of the remote places. So that's the better place. As Daniel Brigson says, this is like heaven for them. This is the better place. So better facilities, activities, on-site psychologists and nurses and doctors. And there's facilities here in the housing area. And on the left-hand side of the 400 individuals that don't have the families, there's facilities there too, but much more harsh. I've never seen it, but Daniel has described it to me. Much more harsh and much more minimal, and it's scarce in terms of what they have. And there's a massive, as we know here, there's a lot of mental health issues. And it's very sad, very, very difficult. And then on the housing side, there's mental health issues too. At the moment, I'm talking too much. I'm going to just go. At the moment, that's just one of my drawings. After I first saw the little detention centre. I'm getting to the children in a minute, but one of the, just so you can understand, like an example of mental health on the more comfortable side, is 2 times ago, about 3 weeks ago, we went in and there were 2 beautiful Iraqi girls who were new. And most of them were Sri Lankan previous to that, plus one little Russian girl. And then 2 times ago we had 2 Vietnamese children who were sort of 12 and 13, and they were actually taken from the community into the detention centre. So they were found as, they were living in the Australian community illegally, and they were taken to the detention centre, because that would have been a big shock to the system. 2 very intelligent Vietnamese children, just so artistic. The things they were doing were just amazing. Their language is great in the detention centre. But the 2 Iraqi girls, so their mother would have been suffering serious mental health issues. The little girls were 3 and 9, and they had a sister who's British. And they had, the day I saw them and I met them, that was the day after they arrived by boat. And I couldn't believe how close to my reality it was when I heard that, because these little girls ran in with smiles on their faces, and they couldn't wait to start the yard. And they'd arrived by boat the day before. And the mother, Daniel tells me, never shows her face, so he's concerned that she doesn't, or she's not, taking on the responsibility she should be as a parent. The people in the detention centre looking after the children, but she's obviously suffering some serious mental health issues because of her experience. So she's pregnant with 4. She's come by boat with being pregnant with 4. She's, I think, 6 or 7 weeks pregnant, and the 3 little girls without her husband. And a month earlier, her 8-year-old son was shot dead at the front door in front of the family. So that's where she's at, and so this mother is hiding away in the housing, and the little girls are really intelligent. They started school this week, so that's really great. But they're smart girls, and they're really animated and filled with energy, and they're just beautiful. And they're just so filled with positivity, and this is where this comes from, because for me, the thing that I find most satisfying and most beautiful about this place is the, like, you can't really put words to it, but just the simple appreciation for to do and interacting with people. That's sort of what these children want. So my reflection on these children, and I've just started sketching these children. I'm struggling at the moment because I can't take photographs. I only have my memory. Okay, and my memory is, I've always drawn from imagery, so I'm having a difficult time artistically. I've hardly made anything in the last 6 months because I'm doing this stuff. I'm loving this stuff, but I'm not making much, so I can't figure out. But these children were real, they're energetic, they're curious and they're loving. They thrive on getting involved and learning, creating and laughing. And the thing is that they're our future, which is interesting because we're not seeing them that way as in terms of our government and as a community. Because if only our leaders could see them the way we do, they would see that these children are exactly what we need. We need richness, motivation and goodness in our country, and that's what they have. Like, they're just filled with it. It's crazy, just beautiful stuff. And, you know, like, we're just not really embracing that. Villawood Detention Centre is 35 minutes away from my home, and only because I happen to stumble across what I'm doing just because that's where life's taken me, have I been able to actually notice that I'm living here in this middle class world, and down the road is this place where all of this is happening. And for me, that's just like I can't put words to that. This is something that stuck with us. One of the people I met said, I want my mum to come. He was an adult, a man, and he just wants his mum to come, but he may never see her again. And we're thinking we might call the exhibition that, because it's sort of conversational, it's real, and it might just sort of bring a lot of imagery to the minds of people who come to the exhibition. And I'm wrapping it up. Where to now? So I'll read this letter. Reverend Jacqueline sends me a lot of emails, and this is a few emails ago in regards to this topic, but it was a letter that I thought I should read to you tonight. It sort of just shows you how there are really amazing people out there in the community because of people like Reverend Jacqueline, who is this humanitarian. He bases his life work on getting people together and supporting the hundreds of people who are let out of the detention centres. So where to now, this is where my mind is at, is to try and somehow support these people. I'm just delivering stuff to their doorsteps because I'm getting teachers at school to give me stuff like kettles and coffee machines, and I'm just getting addresses and delivering stuff, so that's no hassle. But this is the email that led to, you know, people at my work donating things. Okay, last Sunday, Dr. Chidzey and Consilia from Holroyd organised a meeting for the young people in the community with bridging visas. It was a great venture with 70 guys. There are more, turning up pretty ignorant and even anxious about what is happening and feeling insecure about the community support. So these are young men, Sri Lankan men, who've come out of the detention centre, being let out, 70 of them at a time, put into group homes, and the House of Welcome assist with that. And only after this email, 2 weeks later, 100 more young Sri Lankan men were let out of another detention centre. So there are 170 men out there feeling this insecurity and lack of support from the community, feeling lost, feeling insecure about the community support. There were doctors and some of us who have been serving the community in this area to share our thoughts. It was all overwhelming, but we could help these guys if we had a good response from the community, especially more. We'll be coming into the community from detentions in Darwin, Queensland and Villawood. Our concerns were to share information and meaningfully lead, counsel and lead them in the right path and give them support in whatever areas they need support in. I'm skipping some stuff. And to help them with specific guidance to settle into the community, because they need that sort of talking through and support on how to, you know, the how-tos. How do you get from the house to the bus stop and from the bus stop to the station? Just that sort of thing. Yesterday I happened to visit one such group in their house in Toongabbie, 8 of them in the house, looked after by SSI. To my dismay and worry, with just $220 per person per fortnight, they are struggling as they don't have enough clothes. We need second-hand t-shirts, trousers, shoes, utensils, simple beds and beddings, etc. These were fellows who are not too well. Now I know what he means by that. That's meaning that they are getting over torture and trauma. So a lot of these people need a lot of assistance to help them with their mindset and motivation to get up and get work. I took 3 of them and did some substantial grocery shopping, which will ease the situation for some time, but they need to find jobs to see themselves through this period. yeah, I'll stop there. So you sort of get the message there. So that's sort of what I think as a community that we should be sort of trying to do and in little ways. But also the 2013, I'm feeling pretty happy about this second bullet point. I'm going into a new role next year, so I won't have my day off. This was the first year that I applied for 4 days a week teaching rather than 5, so I had the day off to do this. But next year I'm going into a new role, so I won't have the day off. So what we've done is we've actually got the deputy principal and the social justice coordinator and myself met with Daniel on Monday this week, and we've got some proposals going so that when our children in the second half of next year, age 12, sort of turn 18, we can get them to drive, and we can have groups of the older kids drive there and play sport with the parents, because the parents need to have people to play sports with, because they don't have enough people. Like, they've got a soccer field, they've got volleyball courts, they've got a whole lot of sporting facilities, but they've got like 5 or 6 parents in the family area that actually want to play, so you can't play a real game unless you have enough to play. So we're going to provide the bodies, PhD kids, that the young adults playing, and when we do that, then we'll be after hours, so we don't have to worry about what the CEOs say. So we're sort of looking at grey areas, okay? So that's one thing, and that's we've just got to get the paperwork in, but we're pretty sure that's going to go through. The other one is a book club. So the deputy principal is pretty passionate about books and reading, and he's choosing topics that will help them with their mindset and for helping their language and English, and he's going to provide books, and he's going to have book club for those who probably don't want to be so physical. So that's another thing. And what we have to do is trial these things for a month. If we trial it for a month and they're happy with it on the family side, they're going to allow us to go over to the other side, which I think is where it's probably needed even more, where we've got, 340 men who are desperately miserable and need to get out of that place. They can have some sort of something to look forward to in a week, maybe a game of sport or something. So to try and help in that way, and my commitment is to, after hours, second half of next year, to give myself time to transition into my new role, then I can go and do the art with the kids. So we're putting in 3 proposals. And the other thing is the thing that started off in the first place, is this whole idea of having an exhibition. So I'm going to make some art. So in August next year at the Australian Catholic University, I'm hoping to be able to have some art to put on the wall. And Keith is a sculptor, so he's creating sculptures and installations so that the space will be more interesting, and hopefully have a good crowd, and hopefully it will just open up minds. And my husband, who's the IT man, has made sure that I have a website, and he asked me to do this tonight. And also he's got, I don't use Facebook at all. No, I don't like it. I'd rather draw, but I need time for that. So my husband's got a professional Facebook page. Every time I have something I need to say about the project, I can just pop it up. So something important, like some of the quotes here, some references that I've been reading, or just an experience that I've had, some images, just so it's about the project. I think, just want to make sure I've covered everything, because I've talked over time, which I thought I might. I think I've covered everything. Loretta, did you want question and answers after drink?